Hello, my name's Dougal.
Right, Dougal. Quick hello from Dougal there. Yes, it's been 5 months. It's been 5 months, and I did say that I didn't want to ever go back. Well, I needed to take a break. Let's be honest with you. It was putting me in a place I didn't want to really be. Getting so wrapped up in all things Evansy and Witnessy it wasn't good for me. And I knocked it on the head for 5 months, and I'm glad I did actually. But anyhow, I just want to do, I have had a few Carter experiences, and also I'm just giving my thoughts on literally what is going on. What is going on with Lloyd Evans? Anyway, so first and foremost, a quick update on what I've been doing for 5 months. Basically, exactly what I was doing 5 months ago. In other words, I've been driving for a living, getting up at 5:30, working between 10 and 11 hours, coming home suitably, worn out, and painting when I'm not doing that, trying to get this house finished. And now we're coming to the end of that, because the painting should be finished hopefully the end of this week. Sorry, the end of next week. Then we're getting carpets putting down, and that should be it, good to go. Until we can afford to get some replacement windows, that near enough is the house done. And I've done all it myself, so I've saved a fortune there. My driving, thank God, has come to an end. 3 years ago, I applied for a job to work at 2 historical monuments within Dumfries and Galloway. And I was all prepped and ready to start and looking forward to it, because I'm really interested in history. And literally the week before I was supposed to start, I got an email or a phone call, I can't remember which one. Either way, it broke my heart, and it said, sorry, we're due to COVID, due to this thing called COVID, we're going to have to close down all the sites, but we should be able to open them in 3 months. And of course, we know it went on for a lot longer than 3 months, and I didn't start the job, hence why I started driving. However, the sites have started to reopen again, and I applied again to work for them, but working on a range of sites, being something called a roving steward, and I was successful. So I started on the 1st of April, which is why I'm trying to rush to get things done at the moment, and I worked from 1st of April to the end of September. And then the rest of the year, and it's full time, and the rest of the year I can, well, think about what I want to do, and hopefully none of it leads to having to drive for a living. Hopefully I'll have more time to write songs and do all the other things that I need to do. So that's come to the end of that. I haven't seen my son since last May, although funny enough, he then went on to Australia, and he was in Melbourne for the Australian Open, and when Andy Murray, Scotland's Andy Murray, played the last game, Benjamin was actually sitting behind one of the servers, and I nearly saw him every time a serve was made from that particular end. So for half of the match I saw him all the time, which is more I've seen of him since May. I was going, oh, there he is again, so I've seen more of him during that time. And for all those people who say, oh, Zoom's just the same. Zoom isn't the same. Zooming somebody is not the same as actually physically being in their company. It's a lot of bollocks that a lot of people who do not know say that to make other people feel like it's not so bad for a close relative to not be in their company for months and then. Zooming is not the same. So if anybody ever says that to you, but you've always got the Zoom, just say you're talking complete utter bollocks. Right, what else has happened since that time? Right, that's it. That's my catch up on me, really. There's not much else to say, apart from, as usual, the weather is pure pish in South West Scotland. Absolutely horrendous. A horrendous autumn and winter. So come the end of winter now, but for the love of God. Oh yes, I did go to the Canary Islands the other week for a holiday. And me and my wife were going to go, you'll laugh at this story, and funny enough, ironically, I'd lost my passport 3 years ago, actually showing that I was able to work in this country when I went for the job, which I never got. Well, I did get, but I never started. I lost my passport, so I had to apply for a new passport. So I got this like black passport, and my wife still had the old sort of purpley passport we used to have. And I checked online and said as long as you got 3 months on your passport that she could still go over to the Canary Islands. So we got to the airport, everything was booked, the car, the accommodation, the flights, blah 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 blah. Went to the airport, went through security, had our meal and our drinks. I was literally boarding the plane. I go through with my passport, and she tried to go through their passport, and they said you can't go on because your passport doesn't have enough months. Unfortunately, after Brexit, the EU said you now need 6 months on your passport, not 3 months. And she was not allowed to go on the plane, and they just said, well, maybe you can just quickly go to the passport office now and fly out tomorrow. So of course I said, right, I better go. I've got the car booked, you know, I've got accommodation. I'll come pick up you tomorrow. When the plane landed, I rung her up, only to find out that things have changed. You can't now just turn up at a passport office in Glasgow and say, hello, it's me, here's my old passport, here's the new pictures, do us a quick one now. You have to book an appointment. The next appointment was like 3 days later, the next flight out was 2 days after that. So basically she would have turned up, having to pay extra money to get a new passport. So I went on holiday on my own. And the weather was pish. It was like being in Scotland. So I was actually over there and the weather was shite apart from one really good day. I was on my own, and I was in a place called Maspalomas, so if you've ever been there, Gran Canaria, but it is the sort of the elderly German gay capital of the Canary Islands. So I only went out I only went out a few times. Yeah, it was an experience to just be walking past bar after bar, just full of like, you know, men. It was just really, really odd. It was just full of lots and lots of men, you know. There was never any problems. I never felt like, oh, this is a bit dodgy, but it was just a strange experience. And of course, I'm wandering around as an elderly single man myself who, you know, luckily I'd left my leather cap at home and my handlebar moustache shaved off on day one. But anyway, I was going to go to a karaoke one day. We'll come back to karaoke. I was going to do karaoke one day, but it's just if I go up to that bar and they're just like belting out In the Navy and YMCA or Sam Shepard, and it's just full of like elderly gay German couples, I won't feel home from home. So I literally spent most of the time in the apartment. Although I did a lot of walking, so I lost a lot of weight. It wasn't the sort of the Silvio diet, which obviously has shed stones off Lloyd Evans, because obviously because of Kim Silvio ruining his life, he's shed the weight and he looks a lot more better for it. He certainly doesn't look the fat Wallace that he used to look like, but whether he keeps that up or down, it is a matter of thing. I can maybe do it with working on the Silvio diet myself, but needless to say, I did work a hell of a lot, and when I come back, I'm back onto the cross trainer. Obviously, when I start working full time, I won't have time to do that anymore. So anyway, let's catch up quickly with my karting things that happen speaking to the karters. Let's just say I let myself down a couple of times. I did say a video years ago, I don't ever want to speak to the karters again because it puts me in a bad place. Needless to say, I was meeting a mate in Glasgow, and I got the bus up, and I was meeting a mate in Glasgow. We're going to see a band called Fontaines DC. If you've never heard of them, there's a great song of theirs called Televised Mind. So if you've never heard of Fontaines DC, ask Alexa to play Televised Mind. It's a fantastic song. It reminds me of Manchester bands, especially one in particular called The Fall from Manchester in 1980. So I was meeting a mate at a place called Crystal Palace, where it's funny enough, I had a meal and a few drinks with Kim Silvio when I met her in Glasgow. And as I got off the bus, I was turning this corner, and at the corner there were two carters, and I was rushing a bit. And as I ran past, I just looked at my phone, at my watch, and said, "Oh my God, Armageddon's late again." And I ran on. I just thought, well, that was poor show. It was literally spur of the moment. Thought of saying it because it caught me unawares. And then as I said it, I realised the person that I just said that to, I actually knew. She was a lassie called Angie from Glasgow, and she worked for the Royal Bank of Scotland. And when the Royal Bank of Scotland were doing a lot of adverts on the TV with a black guy NatWest, I can't even remember what his name was, it was Hugh or Eddie or something. They used to do joint adverts together, so she was, millions of people recognise this lassie. And when they did the Scottish Cup final, because I think the Royal Bank of Scotland, or the Bank of Scotland, were sponsoring it, she presented the trophy to Rangers captain. And I played football with her husband, I think his name was Anderson, surname, might be wrong, and her brother-in-law. And as I ran past, I thought, oh my God, that's that girl Angie, and she probably recognised me. Maybe she doesn't, because obviously since, back in those days I had more hair and I was thinner. So I went on and met my mate in the Crystal Palace, and I talked about, bumping into them. But it's funny, my mate was a strong Catholic, and now he's exactly the same as me. He doesn't believe in God at all, or our concept of God. So I had a really interesting chat with him. It was funny that we went to the concert, and he put up a Facebook picture of two of us there with the band behind us, and said our joint ages were over 100 years, and it was scary because of course I was 60 and he's just turned 50, so it was 110 years, and there was a lot of people around us who looked like they were maybe 15 or 17. I'm thinking, oh my God, I could be grandchildren for these people. I'm bopping away at the front. Anyway, so getting back to the karting, so I let myself down on that one. I was driving in Dalbeattie another time. I was delivering to a butcher's, as you do, and I saw a whole bunch of carters across the road, and I thought to myself, I underneard. I said, shall I go and speak to them? And then I thought, you know what? No, there's no point. There's no point. There's 4 of them there. I had time. Well, I didn't really have time, but I you only get half an hour lunch, and usually I didn't take it. Like a lot of the drivers, some drivers actually drove eating the sandwich, even though they're not getting paid for that half an hour. So I had time to speak to them, decided no, and I felt really pleased with myself, because normally, being Terry, the ex-witness, I would have gone up to them and witnessed to the witnesses, and I knocked it on the head. However, I let myself down a few weeks ago. I was in this small village, literally a totally village. In the summer it gets quite busy. This is the end of January, I think it is. It was, I think it was the end of January. And I went to this village, and right at the end is a small bus stop. Literally, you get a bus goes in there once every 3 hours, and a dog gets off it. It's totally. As I turned the van round, lo and behold, there's 2 carters there. I couldn't believe it. I just was staggered, because I just thought, if their whole point in being there is to save lives, they may as well stood in a wood and would have probably got more, people walking past them. And I was staggered. So I didn't wind down the window. What am I on about? I pressed the button, the window came down, and I shouted out to them, well, you're not going to speak to many people standing there, are you? And then he came up to the window and went, well, we're hoping to get the occasional dog walk. And I'm thinking, oh, give me a break. We've all seen that famous picture of somebody with the dog, and the dog's cocking up the leg and pissing all over the carter's stand. And I thought, you're having a laugh. If you're walking along there, because you don't approach anybody, do you think a dog walker's going to, speak to you two? I thought, this is complete. Well, anyway, you know my feelings on this, because it so annoys me. Actually, I just thought, when I was over in Canary Islands doing my walking, I never actually bumped into any carters, that's not happened for the first time. I usually bumped into Spanish carters. So anyway, getting back to the Kipford carters, and I then said to him, I said, there's a programme on the TV at the moment called Everybody Else Burns. I said, I was brought up as a Jehovah's Witness, and it's clearly based on the Jehovah's Witnesses. You should watch it. Anyway, for those who haven't watched Everybody Else Burns, you should watch it if you're an ex-Jehovah's Witness. There's lots of triggering. The first episode's clearly the best. The first episode, it goes a bit downhill after that, but the first episode's a topper. And it's just you can clearly tell the writer or writers are definitely ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, even though Jehovah's not mentioned and there is a cross. But there's so many similarities, it's clearly based on Jehovah's Witnesses. So if you haven't seen it, watch it. The first episode is the best episode. So I mentioned to this guy, and of course he comes and says, well, have you ever thought of coming back? And then I just went into my whole usual thing about overlapping generations, why the 144,000 going up, why the governing body having to change thoughts all the time, all these different things. And then eventually she came up to the window and says, well, we're just going to have to agree to disagree. And eventually the guy says, you better be going. And I spent 15 minutes talking to this, especially to him. I think it must be from the Dalbeatty congregation. And I drove away really annoyed with myself, because yet again I just thought, I'm going to come over to these two as a raving lunatic, as an apostate, and I would not convince them one iota that the witnesses are wrong. In fact, I've probably confirmed their belief that the witnesses are right, because we don't want to end up being like that guy there, because I did tell him that I was a man of no faith at all, and I wish the witnesses had never darkened our door. At least I'd have that crumb of comfort in believing that there is a God, and that all good people go to heaven, which I don't believe at all now. So I was really annoyed. The next 2 hours when I was driving it kept on coming back, what I said, what I shouldn't have said, why did I say anything, why did I speak to them, and then it annoyed me that much. I thought, why did I speak to them? Because now I feel shit again, because the whole thing is just so annoying that I can't persuade. Again, I've said this before, the person who persuades someone to come out of Jehovah's Witnesses is the individual. And if you cannot these days go online and find something which should make you start thinking, you're clearly not a thinking person. Ironically, I had somebody contact me, an ex-Jehovah's Witness, sorry, they're still a Jehovah's Witness, I'm the ex-Jehovah's Witness. They contact me through Facebook, through Messenger. All of a sudden I got this, sometimes you get on Messenger, you go, who's this? He's not a Facebook friend. He'd obviously got my name, messaged me realising it's definitely me, because there's not many people with my name knocking around. And he's going, hi Terry, how's things? How's your mum? How's your brother? I'm now in Eastham, or a Birkenhead congregation, or Eastham, and I don't see many people from Ellesmere Port anymore. There's a guy called Steve Evans, and Steve Evans, ironically, when my parents' marriage broke up, he bought our old house. Funny enough, and he had 3 boys, I remember. Heaven knows where they are. Funny enough, I told him then where my son, all my brother's children were. I told where my brother was, where my mum was, where my son was, where I was living. I didn't, but yet he never came back and said, well, my sons are here. So whether his sons are still in the lies is a different thing. However, because I never referenced being in a congregation, he said, so don't you go to the hall anymore? He replied, don't you go to the hall anymore? What are the people of Scotland like? I'm thinking, well, should be questioned. He's been to Scotland, they're just like everybody else. We're all moaning about the weather and griping that we're not eating enough salad and fruit. It just really annoyed me, and I just thought, you know what? Should I use this as an opportunity to send him links to my own videos, well, certainly not to Lloyd Evans' videos, and or other people's videos? Should I do that and try and persuade him to no longer go to the Kingdom Hall? And I just thought, you know what? There's no point. He'll just end up saying, oh, well, you're clearly an apostate, Terry, and I can't talk to you or wish you well. I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to not even respond here, because at the end of the day, I probably won't persuade him. He can only persuade himself. It's all out there on the internet, and if he hasn't at this moment realised that it must be nonsense, especially with the increasing 144,000 number, and if he doesn't think there's something wrong, well, he's not worth my time, to be honest with you. So that's what's been happening with the witnessing things. I tried to keep away from all things witnessing. Literally, I went and so many things who were constant witnessing all the time. I tried to, I stopped following them. There's a few people still follow, like Kim Selby and other people. But decided I just didn't want to do it, because literally my whole feed in Twitter was full of witnessing stuff, and it was getting me down. And I came off all the, I believe there's maybe only one Facebook group I'm still part of. There's only one. And I came away from all of it, because it wasn't doing me any good. So anyway, let's move on to what the hell, Lloyd Evans, what the fuck is going on? Because I saw recently a litigation update. It came through on, I never watched it live, where there was Cora, Mark and Cora, Mikey and Kim, Kim Silvio, and Vast Apostate was on it, and somebody else who came on who was sitting very angry with Lloyd Evans. And I just thought to myself, and of course different things I've seen recently, you know, I watched that. It was the first video I've watched ever, any sort of Evans-y video I've watched ever for 5 months. I don't even follow the thread that I used to follow and update myself, the one which was 144 pages long. I haven't even looked at that. But a few things in Twitter came up. The fact that he was doing karaoke, that he was doing singing songs on an open mic night, probably the same venue, that he was saying that the channel was under attack due to lack of funding, and just other things, just still call himself an activist. And then the latest, just this week, he puts up a picture where he's wearing this really crappy looking suit, saying that he tried to crash a Kingdom Hall, but it didn't go to plan, and the world's to wait for what really happened. The end of the day is, I kid you not, this was the same guy who not long ago thought that that sort of activism was completely and utterly wrong. And even when I was speaking to the Carters with Kim Silvio outside Glasgow Central, he said to me then, says, Lloyd wouldn't like what you're doing right now, what you just did just there. But Lloyd was actually going into a Kingdom Hall, trying to go into Kingdom Hall in a congregation. Lloyd, as far as I'm aware, doesn't speak Croatian. So he was going into a place he can't speak Croatian, and he must have the most famous nose in Croatia. He may have lost some weight, he may have shaved the beard, but you can't take away from that nose. Anybody looking sideways on him would go, that's a... Oh, that's that guy who went to Thailand. It's him. It's him. You know, I'm sure he's so well known in Croatia. You know, it's just there's no ducking away from that nose. Maybe he should have gone in. Maybe he should have gone in disguise, which maybe is why he's just recently dyed his hair sort of Bronski beat, communards, a little respect, Erasure lead singer. He's gone this sort of blondie look. He's calling it sort of midlife crisis, and maybe it's just his way to trying to get in the congregation, thinking nobody's going to recognise him now. Sorry, Lloyd, you are going to recognise you, because there's no getting away from, well, a bit like my nose, there's no getting away that you've got an absolute massive nose, and that your nose opens the door before your hand does. There's no getting away from that conker, that hooter. There isn't. The fact he's actually trying to, because obviously he's trying to get, you know, I've noticed, somebody put up recently, he's bought another 1,000 contributors on YouTube. You know, all of a sudden it goes up in 1 month, 1,000 more subscriptions on YouTube. Yet apparently, according to his viewing figures, they haven't gone up at all. So clearly it makes it look good, but on his Patreon figure, I think it's down to 416. I can't even mind what it was 7 months ago. But this begging, needing for money, you know, I don't get this. Because these people must see, if they follow him on Twitter, think, hold on a second, he was moaning, not so well, before I left, that he was having to go into debt to give his child a haircut. Yet here's this guy out socialising, karaoke, doing social events in Zagreb for his karaoke nights. You know, I'm sure the bar's not free. I'm sure he's having to go up and pay so many, you know, euros for beer over there. It's just bizarre. It's just asking other people to fund his lifestyle. Yes, I'm sure we'd all love to just stand there and to be able to just do things on the camera, do open mic nights, do karaoke, you know, travel to Britain for events you're thinking you're going to be the big cheese and you're not. And yet think that other people should pay for your activism when you're not being activism. He's actually going down the road. Soon I'm wondering if he'll go into actually videoing himself getting T-ball, if he's still employed by him, to show him actually taking away the cart, or just standing outside a cart with a placard saying, down with this sort of thing. Maybe that's what's next. Maybe that's what he's going to have to do next, to try and, you know, do sort of car crash videos to increase his viewing figures So we'll get, you know, so that the money will roll in. So it means he still doesn't have to go and do, you know, a hard day's night working. And so, you know, obviously, and I don't think he's given up his prostitute addiction, obviously, and they don't come free. Even a wee hand job, you know, it's going to cost him, you know, an arm and a leg. So, you know, I'm staggered. And recently, I watched. Well, coming back to, I'll end it in a second. But apparently, he was invited onto a YouTube channel called The Line. Presented by a guy called Jimmy Snow, who's got 79,000 subscribers. He had Lloyd on last night. I don't know what the views are. Escaping Jehovah's Witnesses, Lloyd Evans and Jimmy Snow. And looking at the comments, and literally this goes on for 2 hours and 41 minutes. No way in God's earth am I going to watch this shite. I haven't watched any videos, anything of this guy for months and months and months. And, you know, to think I'd sit down just to analyse this, I'm not going to do this. I've got better things to be doing in my life. But anyway, he's on this show yet again as the face of the ex-Witnessy community. And I'm pretty sure that looking at a lot of the people, I'm pretty sure that they had moderators censoring anything anti-Evansy here. I've not seen anything yet, and I'm not going to go through it all to see it, because even looking at, I can make a comment now, and there's nothing there that I see. There's like, how many comments? There's 20 comments, and I don't see anything which I would expect to see in relation to people who absolutely dislike Evans as being the face of the ex-Jehovah's Witness community, going on saying, you should not have this guy on representing us because of the stunt that he pulled in Thailand. He should be, you know, I wonder if CSA even came up in this conversation. If it did, and I'm not going to watch it because it'll really annoy me. I wonder if it even came up. I wonder how he skirted around this. I wonder if he mentioned it himself. And I'm just wondering how many of the live feed comments got deleted, you know, before they, you know, on for a second and then deleted by, you know, I don't think it's obviously Evans's moderators. It's obviously it's the Line's moderators. It's the Jimmy Snow show. So anyway, I'm staggered. I'm staggered that this guy's still getting airtime. That somebody like Jimmy Snow, I don't know if he brought it up with it. Maybe he did bring it up. The Lloyd Evans controversy. I don't really know, but I'm not going to watch it. I'll maybe somebody will tweet that they did watch it and it did come up. I don't know, but I'm staggered. I'm staggered by the whole thing. It was interesting. I saw recently a picture of him. He's at a gym, and he's got one hand on weights, and he's pulling this awkward face. He's doing this to show that he's working out. Again, gym membership isn't free. So there's people, I don't get it. I don't get it. You know, patrons are paying this guy money to keep fit, to socialise. And the bizarre thing is, for those who didn't notice it, is that when he's doing this grimacing picture, of all things, the workout top he's wearing is one of his own t-shirts. I'm surprised it wasn't that picture of himself, but it's one of his own t-shirts, because obviously that's a fatter, hairy representation of the bleached boy that we now, thin boy that we now see before us. But it was one of his own Lloyd Evans. It says the Lloyd Evans channel. That's the t-shirt he's wearing. He's actually out there trying to advertise his own shitty YouTube channel. Either way, maybe he's got stocks of these because nobody buys them anymore. And thinking, well, what am I going to do with these old rags? I may as well use them down at the gym for the membership paid by the patrons, who can still continue to fund this guy and his crappy lifestyle when he's absolutely, utterly irrelevant. I saw last night, I'm going to finish on this. I saw last night Kim live with Mikey and with Wally, and what I said about I want staying away from all things Witnessy, I'm absolutely adamant I want to do that, because I listened to Wally and he's not in a good place, And the fact that he's got like apparently 80, he said he got like 80 messages of people saying to him, telling him to end his life, I think it was. And he actually said, I don't need anybody to encourage me to end my life because I'm skirting on that all the time. I'm thinking, for fuck's sake, you know, I don't think it's helping this particular guy. I don't think it's helping him at all. Being immersed in everything Witnessy, I don't think it's good. I think keep on being there. This is the way I found it. When you look at what happened to Evans, when you looked at what happened to the other guy, I can't even mind his name. Is it Jake? I can't even mind. And he, as we know, had to do this video saying that he'd been involved in a relationship he shouldn't have been involved with. At least he had the balls to come out and say, and not blame his sexual repression because of his Witnessy upbringing. He said it's all his fault. So unlike Evans's tell-all video where he blamed everybody apart from Lloyd Evans, at least he said it wasn't good. He's another person that he's said he's in dark places many times because of being immersed in witnesses. I was looking at Wally last night, thinking, you know what, Wally, this isn't good, mate. So I don't think immersing yourself in doing ex-Witnessy stuff physical place to be. I obviously Kim and Mikey do all the time, but you know, obviously they've both got each other, and if you're both into it together, I think that's probably better. But I think if you're like you're doing it on your own, I don't think it's a good place to be. And as you know, my wife is absolutely not interested in doing anything ex-Witnessy stuff, so you're not doing it your own, and it seems that sort of, you get a division between you and your partner because you're doing that which is different to them, and they dislike it. So it's like robbing time that you should be spending with your partner when you're immersing so much into watching ex-Witnessy stuff, reading about ex-Witnessy stuff, or doing videos about ex-Witnessy stuff. I don't think it's a good place to be. So I'm absolutely adamant I don't want to go back there again because I don't think it is good. It wasn't good for me. It's definitely not been good for Wally and for, I think it was Jake. Not good at all. So, you know, Wally, Christ, you know, just get away from this and just do something else because you're not in a good place. So I'm quite worried for him. I think he needs to take a break from this, to be honest with you. So I hope he's listening, because I know there's a lot of people who really like the guy, and the thing is he's got more people watching him on YouTube than Evans has now, and he is the most important face of ex-Witnessy, but I don't think it's good for him. I don't think it's good for most people, and you can see why there's a lot of people who used to do Witnessy stuff years ago just don't do it anymore. They've stopped doing it because they realise it's not a good place to be. It's good to do the occasional odd video and come back, but not to be doing it week in, week out, which I don't want to do. So I'm just doing this video purely as a catch up for the people who used to watch me a lot when I did my ex-Witnessy stuff, when I did my Evans stuff. I may do, I'm actually going to come back and do maybe a few things about Evans. The reason being, as you know, I do things about the soundtrack of my life, which is talk about music. And when I heard that he was doing like karaoke songs, I was thinking in light of Evans, because if you're a karaoke singer, and if you're a regular karaoke singer, you have your favourite songs to do, but you've got to mix and match it a bit, because otherwise, oh no, he's not doing this again, learn another song. So I've come up with a lot of suggestions based on a band with the soundtrack of my life, which are the Beatles, which songs that he could do, but I've got a wee thing that my suggestions for songs that he should sing and key verses in the songs, I may have got some of those verses wrong. Anyway, that's what I'm thinking of doing a video about, songs that Lloyd Evans should sing at karaoke, Beatles songs that Lloyd Evans should sing at karaoke with maybe some incorrect verses in my muddled brain. I think I'll do that sometime before I start doing my full-time job. But anyway, because I just for a bit of fun, because at the end of the day I always enjoyed mostly doing his stuff, talking about him, because he is now a figure of fun. When the Witnessy stuff, because my mother and brother still in it, I don't find it fun at all. I find it quite sad. But hey, that's me. Anyway, I thought I'd give you an update. If you've how long have I been on for now? 34 minutes. 34 minutes. Well, you haven't probably watched me for a long time anyway, so if you lasted 34 minutes, well done you. Anyway, I'm going to have a coffee now and take the dog for a walk and do some painting. Hopefully that video will be up more sooner than later. Within the next 7 days. My suggestions for Lloyd. Anyway, right, I'm off. See you later. Bye bye.